Hello, hello. We are live. Sound check, video check. Welcome to today's everyday English lesson. There are a few familiar faces already here in the chat. So welcome, welcome, welcome to your live lesson. And welcome to Learning English Outside the Box with me, Jennifer. So let me talk to you a little bit about our topic today. As you can see, if you've already looked at the title of this video, you know we're talking about using English naturally. Very big question before we begin. If you're watching live, let me know where you're from, where you're watching from, your name, and tell me what natural English is to you. If you're watching live, I want to know what is natural English? What is using English naturally? I'd like you to think about the lesson before we begin to engage and to participate even more. This lesson is also very valuable and helpful if you're watching the replay. So if you're watching the replay, I also want you to think, what is natural English? What does it mean to use natural English? You can write it in the comments below this video. You can write it in the comments below the blog, or you can write it in your notebook. I just want you to think about natural English and what it means to you. So as more people join, I want to read a little bit about natural English. So let's see. Can you see this video? Can you see the video? Refresh. All right. Awesome. So I know the video is working because my dear Adriana B, welcome back, says natural English as the adjective. Natural English is not thinking about language itself, but use it to connect with others. Awesome. Okay, so I want to know more about natural English. What does it mean? What is natural English? I'm a native speaker, so I use English naturally, as a native speaker as we do. Natural English is the English that's commonly used to communicate in those countries where the language is spoken. So I want you to think about some natural English. Can you think of an example? Can you think of an example of natural English? Write an example of natural English in the comments, in the description, comments, below the video, below the blog, wherever you are watching. Write an example of natural English. What is an example of natural English? So excited to read your examples. Natural English means speaking without thinking about what you said. To communicate in English without hesitation. Yes, these are all phenomenal, great examples of what natural English is. So let's try to get some examples. What is an example of natural English? Try to be specific. So don't tell me what natural English is. You've already done that. What is an example of it? Can you use natural English? Can you write a sentence with natural English? Can you show me some natural English? I'll show you if you show me first. So we want to get into this idea of natural English before we get into the juicy details of today. Natural English, what is it? So speaking fluently, yes. So be thinking about natural English. Think about some examples. And let's see. Children speak using natural English. They use slangs, collocations, and phrasal verbs. Example, what are you up to? Love it, Adriana B. Love it. So, it's easy to learn natural English. It's easy to use natural English. It's much easier than you probably think. Right now, you are taking the first steps to speaking, and to reviewing more natural English. So congratulations on step number 1. However, I wanted to bring up this idea about using natural English with you today because I know how important it is for you to improve your English skills. Okay? I know that you want to speak English more confidently. I know you want and you need to speak English more naturally. I've brought up this subject before, and I definitely will bring this up again. Okay? Because I know it's important and I know you need it. I was brought up in a way to always work hard, to achieve goals, to reach the success that I needed. And my parents brought me up to be hardworking. They brought me up to be dedicated and motivated to accomplish what I wanted and what I needed. You can see this dedication. You can see my hard work. You can see all of these things that I was brought up doing in this video, in my business, in English outside the box. Yeah, right now, you're watching a video, you're reading this English lesson, you're watching this replay. This is all part of my English teaching business, right? And I was brought up in a way to always work hard if I wanted to succeed. What about you? How were you brought up? Were you brought up in the same way? By the way, before we continue, I want to quickly bring something up on the screen. I just want to bring something really quickly up on the screen. So I'm going to share my screen with you. And here we go. Are you ready? Woohoo! Bring up. Did you hear how much I just used the word bring up? And I used bring up quite naturally in the last minute or so of my conversation. How many different meanings of bring up did you hear? Did you hear one meaning? Did you hear me use it in 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? How many different meanings of bring up did you hear? Get ready to count. I'm going to repeat what I just said. Not exactly, because I did say it quite naturally and I don't remember everything I said. But get ready to practice this dictation challenge by listening to what I say and to hearing how many different times and how many different ways I use bring up. Are you ready? Who's ready? If you're ready, say, let's do this in the chat. Let's say, let's do this in the chat. We're going to talk more about it. All right. So this is your dictation practice, your dictation challenge. We're talking about bring up, and I'm showing you how to use English much, much, much more naturally. So I'm going to use bring up naturally in context. Awesome. You want to listen to how many different ways I do it. Are you ready? Let's do this. Okay. We're talking about using English naturally. I wanted to bring up this idea of using English naturally with you today because I know how important it is for you to improve your English skills. I know you want to improve and speak more confident English. So I'm bringing up this idea about natural English. And I've brought up this idea of natural English before, and I know I absolutely will definitely bring it up again because it's so important. I'm bringing this up because it's so important for you to improve your English. And you know, my parents brought me up in a way to be hardworking, to be dedicated, and be motivated to achieve the things that I want to achieve, right? My parents brought me up to be always doing things to reach success, to be dedicated and to be motivated, right? You can feel this motivation, see this motivation, and experience this dedication in my business, in English Outside the Box. Remember, you're watching this video, you're reading this blog post, you're reviewing this English lesson, and all of this is related to my teaching English business, my online business, English Outside the Box. And I work so hard to make it successful because that's how I was brought up. Were you brought up in the same way? Were you brought up to always work hard to achieve what you wanted to do? Were you brought up to work hard to learn English? By the way, I just brought this document up on my screen to show you a little bit more about this phrasal verb bring up. Can you see the PDF that I brought up on my screen? Can you see this information that I'm highlighting that I brought up on my screen? All right. Guys, I just used brought up so many times. I brought it up naturally in this conversation. I talked about the way I was brought up. I talked about bringing things up on the screen. I talked a lot about the phrasal verb to bring up. So, how many different meanings did you hear? I see 5 meanings in the chat. I see a lot of examples in the chat. I love this. But I want you to tell me in the chat or in the video comments below or in your notebook, how many different meanings did you hear? How many different meanings did you hear? Did you say that you heard 3 different meanings? If you said you heard 3 different meanings, then woo! Give yourself a pat on the back. Jump up and down in your room. Scream, heck yeah, I did it. I got it. 3 different meanings. Awesome. Now, if you heard 4, you might, or 5, you might have just confused or maybe thought I used something differently. So let's talk about what those 3 different meanings are. And I want to make this as personal as possible. So I'm going to unshare my screen and I'm going to come back to you live. Let me see. Here I am. All right. So we just talked about how to use English more naturally, and I presented this phrasal verb, bring up, to you naturally in a conversation, in a dialogue, for 3 different meanings. I used the phrasal verb in the 3 different meanings naturally in about 1 minute. So let's talk a little bit about what those meanings are. Now, remember, if you are a person, if you are an English learner who needs visual aids to learn, if you need to see the sentences and read the sentences, then remember, you can read this full English lesson on my blog, on my website. So you want to go to englishoutsidethebox.com/blog, B-L-O-G, or you can click blog and free lessons at the top. The first lesson posted today in about 10 minutes is going to be the full English lesson for this. So if you need to read the sentence examples and read this lesson, it will be available for you on the blog. But right now, we're getting personal and we're going to practice just listening and dictation. As I mentioned, I used 3 different meanings of bring up. I used bring up to say that I mentioned something. to mention something for discussion. So I want to bring up this idea of using natural English. I want to bring up this idea of using natural English. I've brought it up before, and I definitely will bring it up again. I will mention it for discussion. I will talk about it. That's way number one. I also used it talking about how I was brought up. I was brought up to be dedicated and hardworking and motivated. I was brought up by my parents to always work hard for what I achieved. This means to bring someone up means to teach them, to take care of them, and to raise them like a child. So to bring someone up, to bring a child up, is to take care of them, to teach them, to raise them. I was brought up to be hardworking. I was raised, I was taught to be hardworking. And then I asked you, were you brought up to be hardworking? Were you brought up to be motivated and dedicated to learn English? That's what I asked you. Think about that. The final way I used bring up was to cause something to appear on the screen. I said originally, okay, hold on. I want to bring up something for you on the screen. I want to bring up a PDF. I'm going to share my screen with you because I want to bring up a PDF. So to bring up also means to cause something to appear on the screen. Now, I guess that this last one, meaning number 3, is what is different. Awesome. So a lot of you watching in the chat say you got it. Yes, yes, yes. And Inka Moody and somebody else in the chat mentioned this as well. So bring up also has some other meanings. There are other meanings than just the 3 I mentioned today. There are other meanings. For example, vomit. I felt so sick last night. I ate so much junk food. I felt so sick and I brought it all up. I vomited, I threw up. So there are other meanings for bring up. However, naturally, I used 3. To mention something, to raise, to take care of, to teach a child, and to cause something to appear on the screen. So those are 3 meanings of bring up. Now, I presented this information for you in a very, very particular way. And tell me, how do you feel about the phrasal verb bring up? Do you feel like you're ready to use it? Do you feel like you understand it a little bit more because you heard me use it? You saw me use it, or you will see me use it on the blog. Tell me, how do you feel about the phrasal verb bring up? Do you feel more confident to use it right now? Tell me in the chat, tell me below in the comments, or write in your notebook. Yeah, I feel good. I feel confident about using bring up. Let me know. And so I presented this information. I presented this phrasal verb bring up to you in a very particular way. I introduced the first few steps that you need to use more natural English. So awesome. I'm used to using bring up. Nasir says yes. He feels more confident using it. Ahmed says he feels more confident using it. Awesome. So again, I presented the very first few steps that you need to take to use English more naturally in your conversations. Remember, that is why you are learning English, right? You're learning English because you need to use it. You need to use it for work, for travel, for comfort, for ease, for relationships, for any reason that you're learning English. So you're learning English because you want to use it and you need to use it, right? However, so many students ask me or tell me that they never remember the English that they've learned. They learn something and they forget it. They read something, they understand it, and then they forget it. So let me tell you that if you followed the first few steps to learning English naturally that I presented today. And if you continue to follow the remaining steps that I'm going to tell you about today, you will use English more naturally. There are 8 steps that you need to be taking to learn, to use, to remember more natural English. So how many of the steps are you taking? Let me tell you something, that if you forget a step or you don't do a step, or most importantly, if you skip the last 2, if you don't follow these steps, you will forget new language and you'll be in the same situation as usual. Jennifer, why don't I remember? So what are these steps to learning more natural English? Well, we've already talked about some of them today. Step number 1, you want to listen to new language naturally in context. You want to hear how natural English sounds. You want to hear how it sounds. You want to hear how it's used. You want to listen to it in a TV show with a native speaker, in a song, on a podcast, on an audiobook. You want to listen and hear how English is used first. Step number 2, you want to write down the new vocabulary that you heard. You want to write down the new language that you heard, whatever the language may be. If you're learning grammar, you want to write down the grammar you heard. If you're learning vocabulary, you want to write down the vocabulary you heard. If you're learning phrasal verbs like bring up, in today's example, you want to write down the phrasal verbs that you heard. You all did this in the chat. Well, most of you did this in the chat. You wrote down what you heard me say. You wrote down the sentences. So you took step number 2. Woo! Okay, continuing on. Step number 3 to using more natural English is to think about this new language in English. Think about the context that you heard it in. Think about what it means. Try to identify the meanings on your own. So when you heard me say, I'm going to bring up a PDF on the screen, what does that mean to bring up? What's the meaning? What's the definition? So step 3 is you want to first think about the meanings and the definitions in English and try to identify the meanings on your own. You're going to be much more likely to remember this information. Step number 4, you want to then read the information. So if there's a transcript, you want to read that. If there's a blog post like today, EnglishOutsideTheBox.com, you want to go read that. You want to read the article, the transcripts, the subtitles. You want to be able to read what you heard and read that new language to check your understanding and to see how the language is used naturally. So you notice a pattern here. First, you want to hear how the language is used. Then you want to write it down. You want to write it. You want to think about it. Then you want to read it and you want to see it. Notice that in these first 4 steps, you're using almost all of your senses and different ways to learn and remember and use this English. These first 4 steps are important. The more you use, the more you see, the more you hear, the more you practice, the more you're going to remember. All right, so we're step 4. Step number 5, then you want to go in and check the accuracy. You want to make sure you know what you are learning and understand what you're learning. So review the definitions of new vocabulary, review the definitions of phrasal verbs or idioms, make sure you read the rules of grammar. Step number 5 is going to be reviewing the true definitions and the true information to check your accuracy. Step number 6, you want to read more sentence examples. You want to get more context. You want to understand how to use it more. So you've seen it, you've heard it, you've read it, you've written it, you understand it, and now you want to see how to use it more and more and more and more. Okay? Then we get on to the most important steps, steps number 7 and steps number 8. Step number 7, you want to apply it to your life. How are you going to use it? I presented you with 3 different meanings of bring up. I used it naturally for me. I've used it naturally in my life and how I would use it as a teacher teaching you English. how are you going to use this new language? How are you going to use these phrasal verbs, these idioms, this grammar? How are you going to learn, or how are you going to use the new language that you're learning? Okay. Step number 7 is you want to apply it to your own life and think about how you're going to use it. Step number 8 is starting to use it. Using it in your daily conversations, using it as you talk to yourself, using it with friends, using it with your cat. Step number 8 is using it. So a secret is that most students, I don't want to say all students because that's not true. Most students forget steps number 7 and 8. Most students don't do steps number 7 and 8. This is why most students don't remember English. This is why most students don't remember vocabulary that they've learned. And this is why most students say, I'm frustrated because I learned something and I can never use it. What about you? What about you? Are you one of these students that forgets language that you learned? Okay? And only uses English or what he's learned or she's learned with the cat. I love that. Nanan, your teaching strategies are perfect. Thank you. We're not done yet. How long should I study every day to get fluent? So this is going to depend. All right. So steps number 7 and 8 are the most important. I want to bring this up again because it's important for you to make it relevant to you. When you connect the new language to your life, when you connect the language to your own life, it feels relevant, right? It feels important. It feels like you need it and you should use it, right? So if it feels irrelevant and it feels impersonal, you're never going to join. You're never going to use it. You're never going to remember. So you need to start taking these 7 steps. You've taken 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 steps with me today with this bring up. You've seen it, you've heard it, you've read it, you've talked about it, you've thought about it. You've thought about it. And Luis Carlos de Souza in the chat has already defined the golden step. Not only has Luis Carlos already defined the golden step, he has already taken this step to English fluency. So if you have watched my videos before, if you've followed my lessons before, then I know you've already heard about the Phrasal Verb Conversation Club. There are some new names in the live chat right now that I've never seen. So if you're brand new, then you have never heard anything about the Phrasal Verb Conversation Club. So the Phrasal Verb Conversation Club is my monthly training program. This monthly training program is going to connect you to these 7 steps. I have resources, videos, audios, PDFs, guides, and weekly lesson material for you, connecting you to these 7 steps. I connect you to more speaking opportunities because you connect with me in a group conversation call. You connect with Dora, Louise. You connect with, I didn't see Douglas here today. You connect with Pauline. I didn't see Pauline here today. You connect with so many different English speakers and me. And you get connected to a conversation partner. So in the Phrasal Verb Conversation Club, you get weekly materials to help you study and to help you learn English. These weekly materials are going to take you to English confidence. You're going to get more speaking practice with me, partners, group conversation calls, and you're going to start improving your English fluency. So you can join the Phrasal Verb Conversation Club by going to the link that I've put in the chat. All right. Or, so it's bit.ly, bit.ly/PV Club 1. PV Club 1. And actually, let's just show you a little bit inside the course. Let's show you a little bit inside the course. As I'm showing you inside the course, I'm showing you a little bit about what you're going to learn. I would love for my members watching live to say why these students should join. You have joined, Louise and Dora, Pauline if you're watching, Douglas if you're watching, so many different people. Why? Why should other people join? And let's take a look inside. All right. So this training program is $30 per month. And again, you're going to get weekly materials, conversation partners, and group calls. So you can read all about what you're going to achieve, what you're going to practice, how your life is going to improve, how your English is going to improve in the club. I tell you a little bit about the club here you can watch, but let's look at what you're going to get. When you join, you are going to get all of this welcome material, a welcome guide, a phrasal verb guide, and you are going to get information about what you can expect week by week. And if you're not a member, you can go to this website, courses.englishoutsidethebox.com/p/phrasal verbs, and you can actually preview this material. You can see what you're going to get in the club. You can get this information here, and you can learn more about the club. Okay, this is perfect if you still have questions. All of this welcome material is available for you right now today if and when you sign up. You'll also get these extra resources, information about our group calls, this group collaboration document for you to practice your writing and to upload audio and video, sharing your writing, connecting with other members, and Phrasal Verb Friday. Remember how I told you get weekly information? This week, week 1, is available right here in June. June's information started yesterday. You get to listen to new phrasal verbs in context, you get to read new phrasal verbs in context, and you get to review the meanings, the exercises, and you get speaking practice. So June, week 1 is here. And today is the last day for you to sign up and also get May. So May, week 1, week 2, week 3, and week 4 are available. So in week 1, remember you're listening, you're reading, and you're connecting to the language. Week 2, we're teaching you how to use it more naturally with context, situations. We talk about how to connect it with your life. Week 2 includes our group conversation call. Week 3, we talk all about pronunciation. There's a video to connect you with more pronunciation practice. You get tons of discussion questions to practice with your partner. And in week 4, we're connecting you with a review, a wrap-up, and another group call. So this is an example of all of the information that you're going to get when you join. So week 1 of June is here, and week 2 comes out next week. But remember, today, Tuesday, is the last day for you to get May and June, because May's material is expiring tomorrow. It's expiring tomorrow. Also, when you join, you are going to get this study plan. Ooh, you already have an inside look here. So this study plan is 4 pages of information showing you how to use this club and what you can do. It is giving you daily activities for you to use each week. So each week there are 4, 5, 6 activities, daily activities for you to improve your English. All right. So that is a little peek, a little look inside the club. I just brought up the information about the club, but now I'm back here live with you to end this call, to wrap up, and to answer any questions you may have. So, shall we review? Which means, should we review what we learned today? All right, should we review what we learned today? In this lesson, in this replay, you learned 3 different meanings of bring up, and I showed you how to learn them naturally. I presented you with natural text that you listen to. On the blog right now on my website, you can read this information. I gave you the sentence examples, and I shared with you 7 ways, the 7 steps you need to take to use English more naturally, to use more natural English. So Dora in the chat says you learn new phrasal verbs, use it with our speaking partners, and you talk to Jennifer or other native speakers. Getting to know more people from different places, hearing different pronunciation, and getting to know different countries' time zones. Dora, I love that the Conversation Club is helping teach you different time zones. That's perfect. Adriana B., I would love to see you inside the course. Love languages. Welcome, Luis Carlos de Souza. Thank you for joining us. And Non, all of my social media is found on EnglishOutsideTheBox.com. Antonio de Lima, Esteban, Ing Hamudi, Eduardo Matias, welcome. Sam Joni, and I saw Mateos, Nasir, Sam Mazhar, and Luis Antonio Suarez, all of you coming back for this lesson. Thank you, everybody, for learning with me live. If you're watching the replay, thanks for learning English with me and sharing your English journey with me. I highly recommend, I encourage, I urge you to start taking these 7 steps to learning English more naturally. I encourage you to join our Phrasal Verb Conversation Club and have some fun with us. Connect with us in group calls, connect with your conversation partner, and sign up today to get 2 months for the price of 1. May and June. Will I see you inside the club? I hope so. If you have any questions about what you heard today, you can comment your questions below this video. You can send me an email. You can ask me on social media, EnglishOutsideTheBox.com. I'm here to help you learn English, and I'm here to connect with you. So thanks for learning with me. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you start using these 3 ways of bring up that we talked about today. Start using them today with your conversation partners, with your friends, in your classes, and start using English. I wish you a happy, happy, happy Tuesday, and I will see you very soon and inside the club. Thank you for learning with me. Have a great Tuesday, and I will see you later. Bye-bye.